The princess is reborn on the day she chooses her husband. This time she no longer selects the scholar she deeply loved in her previous life. Instead, she chooses the general with whom she had no connection before. In her past life, the princess had chosen the weak scholar. Even when enemy forces were closing in on the kingdom, the princess handed him the military command token to save his life. Who knew that just as the princess prepared to resist the foreign enemies, the scholar would stab a blade into the princess's back. At that moment, the scheming woman also rushed over. Seeing the military command token in the scholar's hand, she immediately suggested surrendering it to the enemy army to save their lives. Hearing these words, the princess's heart turns to ashes, and the scholar, to prove his loyalty to the enemy army, even sets the entire palace ablaze. Just as the princess reaches despair, the general risks his life to rush in and protect her, but facing the endless waves of enemies, the general knows he is outnumbered, so he gently lifts the princess in his arms. Since he cannot break through with her, he decides to live and die together with her. In her final moments, the princess looks at the man before her, vowing that if there is a next life she will never fail the general. Unexpectedly, the next second she is reborn on the day of choosing her husband. At this moment, the emperor reminds her her choice will change the fate of the nation. Remembering the suffering of her past life, the princess chooses the general without hesitation. Because of the screen blocking the view, no one knows whom the princess has chosen. Then the emperor sets the wedding date 7 days later. At this time, the scumbag confidently walks out of the great hall because he believes the princess surely chose him. Seeing the princess waiting by the door, he thinks she is waiting for him, so he steps forward and accuses the princess of presumptuously deciding their marriage and demands that the princess apologize to the scheming woman. The princess is too lazy to waste words with him. She pushes him aside and walks toward the general. The princess remembers the general's genuine devotion to her in the previous life and resolves to spend the rest of her life with him in this one. When the scumbag sees the princess ignoring him, he even tries to raise his hand to strike her, but is stopped in time by the general. The cowardly scumbag dares not act again, but still threatens that the princess must apologize to the scheming woman, otherwise she should not expect to marry him. After speaking, he leaves in embarrassment. However, the princess pays no attention to his threats. Then she gently removes the general's mask. Unexpectedly, the usually cold general is remarkably handsome. The general tries to retrieve his mask, but is stopped. Then the princess hints that she has already chosen the general as her husband. The general initially thinks this is just a joke, but the princess solemnly states that 7 days later she will be dressed in her wedding gown waiting for him. Even after the princess leaves, the general still hasn't recovered from his shock. The next day, the princess prepares wedding jewelry at a jewelry shop. At this time, the scumbag also brings the scheming woman inside, and the scheming woman takes a liking to the jewelry the princess selected. At this moment, the scumbag still thinks these are apology gifts the princess prepared. Just as the scumbag reaches out to take them, the princess directly puts them away. At this point, the scumbag notices the princess's attitude has obviously changed, but he pays it no mind. Instead, he lets the scheming woman select other jewelry and claims that the princess will pay for everything. The princess is instantly amused by his audacity. Before long, the scumbag has selected over a dozen pieces of jewelry for the scheming woman. Just as they are overjoyed, the shop owner presents them with the payment bill. The scumbag realizes the princess refuses to pay for them, so he threatens the princess that if she won't help settle the bill, she must return the betrothal hairpin he gave her. So the princess immediately